us now discuss what the later Buddhist philosophers like Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, etc. thought about the self. In later Buddhist works also, the existence of a surviving, lasting personality of some sort over and above the physical and mental constituents has been rejected. What was explained through metaphors earlier was argued logically by later thinkers. The arguments of the Madhyamika thinker Nagarjuna, presented as a dilemma in the chapter Atma Poriksha of Mula Madhyamaka Shastra, may be discussed here as an illustration. If Atma be the same as the skandhas, it would be subject to origin and decay. On the other hand, if it is different from the skandhas, it would be without the characteristics belonging to the skandhas. Chandrakirti in his commentarial and other writings elaborates the argument. His first point is that the self is not in the five constituents, nor are the five constituents in the self. If the self and the five constituents were regarded as different, as separate from each other, then it would have been possible for the one to hold the other. But as there is no separation between the two, the statement that one holds the other is absurd. Chandrakirti adds, as the self is not made of matter, rupa, its existence cannot be admitted. For the same reason, it cannot be said that the self possesses attributes of its own. Had the self been regarded as separate from the skandhas, their relationship would be like that of a cowherd and his cows. If it was regarded as not separate or Veda, then the self would be made of rupa, etc. Hence, it follows that the relation of self with the skandhas cannot be shown to be either one of identity, ekotva, nor of difference, annatā. The characteristics which the non-Buddhists generally attribute to the self cannot actually belong to the self or the soul. For the self or the soul is not any real entity. It is nothing but a name. With the analogy of a mirror, the Buddhists point out that just as on account of a mirror, an image which is not real is seen, similarly, on account of the skandhas, the notion of I-ness, which actually is not real, does arise. As without a mirror, the image cannot be seen, similarly, without the conglomeration of the five constituents, the notion of I-ness cannot arise. Apart from the five skandhas, no self can be accounted. If the belief in the existence of a self is regarded as a wrong idea, the question immediately arises, how is such an idea of the self or soul formed? The Buddhist reply is that such a belief is the result of an incorrect interpretation of data of psychological experiences as well as that of a man's natural tendency to believe in the existence of an ego rather than egolessness. Our linguistic usages often mislead us into the wrong belief of a self, since it is a common tendency of man to try to interpret the nature of reality on the basis of the structure of language and admit the existence of objects corresponding to linguistic expressions. For example, from the expression it rains or it thunders, it is assumed that there is a process which is designated by the term it. Similarly, from such expressions as I think, it is inferred that there is an entity called the I which performs the act of thinking. In this way, men are misled into the wrong belief of I-ness or the self. That is why Buddha regarded that the question, "Who is it, O venerable monk, that fails?" is not a properly formulated or well formed question. The proper formulation of it will be, "Conditioned through what does feeling arise?" Then it can be answered that through sense impressions, feeling is conditioned. Similarly, instead of asking what are old age and suffering and to whom does it belong, it is better to say that there is not one single thing that can be called old age and death, and there is no single entity to which they belong. This means that the Buddhists believe that although language is used to communicate reality, the structure of the language is not always able to perform that function. That is, depict the nature of reality accurately. Accordingly, in the Digha Nikaya, it has been reported to be said by Buddha, "These, O Chitta, are names, expressions, terms of speech, designations in common usage in the world. And of these, a Tathagata makes use indeed, but is not led astray by them." The Buddhist theory of Anattā provides a new way of looking at human beings. Denying the doctrine of Sasvatabhada on the one hand and the doctrine of Uchchedavada on the other, the Buddhists do not look upon the individual as a substance whose aim is to get absorbed into a transcendental reality. Nor do they look upon man as an entity which gets annihilated at death. Though, like the materialists, they do not deny any permanent eternal self, they do not find any problem to account for the continuity of the individual and his moral responsibility. For them, human being is a psychophysical organism interconnected by causal connections. Such a human being is dependent on four kinds of nutrients for its sustenance, namely material food, sensory impression, mental volition, and consciousness.